Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. You are listening to a rebroadcast of a previously recorded show.
We're live in the Miami Book Fair, powered by Life Improvement Radio. I am with my two co-hosts, Peter Elbridge from the Perseverance Network and Eric Remmel of Life Improvement Media, CEO. And Eric, an amazing day. We are finishing on that final hour. And who knows if we get any stragglers in to continue it a little longer. But always fun times when we cover Miami, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. It's always a blast, and you got to be on your toes because sometimes we'll work stuff in that wasn't even on the schedule.
Oh, that's how it works. You got to definitely on your toes, right? Right, Peter?
Oh, most definitely. I've seen it happen many times.
Absolutely. And we do have our author on the line, Jack E. Davis, author of The Gulf of A Making of an American Sea. Jack, how are you? And
I'm doing well, thank you.
How are things going in Miami? Again, is this your first time in Miami, or have you been in the book fair before?
I did the book fair in 2009 for a previous book.
Awesome. And so it's been a while. So what have you seen the changes? They just continue to grow, doesn't it? Each and every year.
This is my third book festival in 3 weeks, coming from Texas and Tampa Bay Times, and this is by far the largest.
Absolutely, and it's amazing connecting with those different authors throughout the weekend and stuff like that, and getting to see what they're doing and what projects they're doing. It's a lot of fun on that end, and also the fans' end, where all the people are coming to meet you for sure.
Yes, it's quite an impressive event, and I have a lot of author friends who have done it over the years, and everybody enjoys coming to the Miami Book Fair.
Awesome. All right, let's kind of go delve into specifically enough your book and why you wrote it. Tell us about that.
Well, I grew up. So the book is about the Gulf of Mexico. It's an environmental history from the geological formation to the present, and focusing on the 5 U.S. states. And I grew up on the Gulf of Mexico, so I had this intimate relationship with it. But I also wrote the book because of the BP oil spill, not to write about the oil spill, but to, in fact, not write about the oil spill. I felt as though that 87-day nightmare in the summer of 2010 had robbed the Gulf of its true identity, as had Hurricane Katrina 5 years earlier in 2005. And so I wanted the American people to know that there's much more to the Gulf than just this oil sump and sunny beach or Hurricane Alley, that it has this rich and wonderful history that is woven in with the larger American narrative. We never encounter the Gulf in our standard history textbooks, and I felt that no one had written the history of the Gulf, and that history needed to be told.
Okay, Peter, question for Jack.
Yeah, I'm actually interested to learn more. What are some interesting tidbits or facts would you like to share from the book?
Well, when we think about Manifest Destiny and the country's march westward across the continent in the 19th century, we don't think about the Gulf of Mexico, but it was very much a part of the American frontier and part of that Manifest Destiny experience. And it really leads it off because Jefferson purchased Louisiana Territory in 1803, and with that purchase, he got the first waterfront property on the Gulf of Mexico. And he was as interested as going south as he was in going west. He even wanted to acquire Cuba.
Wow.
Oh, wow. All right.
And something. So what if he would have, Jack? What would have happened if he'd acquired Cuba too? Been interesting, wouldn't it?
Well, it would have been interesting. I don't think Miami would be as culturally rich a place as it is today, for one. And I'm glad that he didn't acquire Cuba personally. And but eventually he picked up Florida was the Spanish territory at the time of the Louisiana Purchase. So was Texas, and he eventually picked up those, or the U.S. picked up those territories too. And the other thing a lot of people don't know about the Gulf of Mexico is that it's one of the richest estuarine environments in the world, which makes it one of the most productive fisheries in the country. It outproduces the entire U.S. East Coast virtually every year. And the other thing people don't realize is that the tourist industry didn't start with beaches. It started with this wonderful sport fish, the tarpon, which is a glorious fighter in the late 19th century when the first one was hooked in 1885. It set the sport fishing world on fire up in the Northeast, in the Midwest, and the British Isles. All these people from those places converged on the Gulf of Mexico to try to catch a tarpon, and they did. They caught them. They could catch dozens at a time within a couple of weeks. Now we're talking 100-pound fish plus, sometimes even to 200 pounds, and marvelous fighting fish.
You know, I wondered, was there any part of the book that was a little bit difficult to write, or maybe some sort of a roadblock that encountered while writing it?
That's a good question. It wasn't really. I mean, as I was writing the history, the way I wrote this book, I'd sit down and write, and the history was more or less telling me how it wanted to be written. And I made a couple of Gulf-wide research trips, and there was plenty of archival material and plenty online now too, primary source materials. And so I wouldn't say that any particular place is harder than the other to write about it. But what was difficult, what was challenging, was how to organize the book. Again, I wanted to focus on the thought. I'm sorry. Yeah,
that reverse engineering type aspect of it, right?
Right. Yeah. That's exactly right. And to be honest with you, it was intimidating at first, but then ultimately I decided, I wanted nature to come to the fore in the story, to show it as this historical agent, as this animating force in the human experience. And so that really gave me my organization. I decided to organize the chapters around natural characteristics of the Gulf, estuaries, islands, birds, fish, the beach. I write about the history of the beach, oil, of course, and without ignoring the human experience, I weave really fascinating human stories into this larger history. And I can give you one example is Edward Avery McElhaney, whose father invented Tabasco sauce on Avery Island, Louisiana, and Edward took over the company, made it into the company that we know today. This was in the late 19th century. But he was also a premier bird conservationist in America. He did more than virtually anybody in the late 19th and early 20th century to protect wading birds, egrets, herons, white ibis, roseate spoonbills, the rest, from the plume hunters who were killing birds by the millions down here in South Florida and the Everglades in particular for the women's hat industry. Feather hats were all the rage in the late 19th and early 20th century. But here the Tabasco air is this premier amateur ornithologist that the experts are consulting.
Yeah, wow. And so thinking about the Gulf of Mexico in so many ways, and it's very misunderstood, isn't it, Jack?
I believe so, and again, that was one of the motivations behind writing this book. Because if you Google Gulf of Mexico today, you know what will come up first, and on the first couple of pages is oil spills, and so I just think that's a shame that we think of the Gulf as just simply a place where we get oil or maybe where we might sun on the beach, and as I said earlier, there's so much more to the Gulf than that, and it's this wonderful history that I think is fascinating that, again, had not been told.
Kind of jumping off of that point, for your book, like how are you going to, or how did you kind of persuade people's minds so that it's not only the event that's a part of it, but also the more numerous aspects of the Gulf of Mexico? Well,
that's where a good publicist at the press comes in, right? So my press, W.W. Norton, Liverlight, has been advertising it in that manner. But I open the book talking about that this is not in the prologue of the book. I say this is not a book about the oil spill, and this is a book to indeed talk about the broader, larger Gulf and its fascinating history. outside of the oil spill. I do mention the oil spill. I mean, you can't avoid it, obviously. And the hurricanes, I have a chapter on hurricanes. But everybody seems to focus on Katrina with regard to the Gulf. And they forget about all these other hurricanes that have come through the Gulf. The Gulf averages 2.5 hurricanes a year. And it's the most dangerous place to live in the United States because of all those hurricanes, in terms of living along the coast.
Wow. It's very, very, very interesting, to say the least, with the story of all that. And what's the feedback been so far? I know the book's just come out, but people have read it so far and stuff like that.
Well, it came out in March. I have to say, I have not had anything less than an enthusiastic review, including 2 in the New York Times and 1 in the Wall Street Journal. And the book just 2 weeks ago won the Kirkus Prize, which is a major national award. So. Wow. And the way I look at this is it's not about me. It's really about the Gulf, and I'm very pleased that the Gulf is getting attention, not just in the region, but from these national publications and from people across the country. And that's what we had aimed for in the press and I, and we seem to be getting that kind of response.
And when you talk about the Gulf and all that type of stuff, Jack, it's something. How can we make sure that we can still keep the greenness of the Gulf and the safeness of the Gulf? What kind of things should we ask our politicians, but also to get out in social media and stuff to make sure that the Gulf remains where it needs to stay as the Gulf of Mexico? What recommendations would you give them?
Well, I recommend that we recognize that nature delivers more to us when we don't tamper with it. When we go, and Everglades is an absolute, perfect example of that. When we go in and we tamper with a natural place, we diminish its capacity to provide for us. And so we have to recognize that. We have to recognize what is of natural value in the Gulf of Mexico, such as its estuaries. There's some 200 estuaries around the 5 U.S. states, and as I said, it's among the richest in the world. And they're vitally important in many ways, not just in terms of providing seafood, but also absorbing carbon, from the atmosphere. And we've got to recognize that we've got to respect what the Gulf is naturally. Its currents, its estuaries, that this is a biologically diverse place, and which includes us. We're part of that biological diversity. And we can take from the Gulf, and it'll keep giving to us just as long as we give a little something back. And again, that is that recognition, that is its respect of what it is naturally. We just really have to stop tampering with these natural places, particularly with regard to engineering projects. They've been the worst insult to the Gulf. Among the worst insult to the Gulf is engineering projects.
So, Jack, do you have another project coming up? Any more things you're going to be writing soon?
I do. The title I'm working with now, my next book is Bird of Paradox: How the Bald Eagle Saved the Soul of America.
Huh.
So a history of the bald eagle. It's a wonderful environmental success story that I think can appeal to a broad audience, that not just the choir will read, that people who are, patriotic Americans, who are really interested in protecting the bald eagle as an American symbol. I think they can relate to this. We nearly wiped out the bald eagle by 1963. There were only 400 mating pairs in the United States, but they've made a tremendous comeback since then because of smart actions we took.
Fabulous. All right. Sounds great. Where can we purchase the book, Jack, and find more information on you? Where can we go?
The Gulf you can purchase anywhere. You can get it Books and Books here in Miami. You can get it on the online bookstores, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can get them at the Barnes & Noble stores. You can get it at certainly your independent bookstores. So it's available everywhere.
All right. Well, thanks for calling, Jack. Best of luck.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, take care. All right, see you there. Okay, bye-bye. You're listening to the Neil Haley Show, powered by Life Improvement Radio, live from the Miami Book Fair, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own and shall not be construed in any way as advice from Life Improvement Radio. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our website. Personal perspectives expressed by the producers, writers, or editors will always be presented as such. Any rebroadcast or retransmission without the expressed written consent of Life Improvement Radio is strictly prohibited. Thanks for listening.